This is breaking news.
Breaking news on CBS 2, the Marine veteran accused in the deadly subway chokehold has just turned himself in.
He's expected to be formally charged by the Manhattan DA. This is video of Daniel Penny just surrendering moments ago to the 5th Precinct in Chinatown.
The trial of Daniel Penny is in full swing and has been compared to Soviet-style tactics. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms, your NRA certification of multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below, and you like channel, like content, and what I do here, you can support me with the link. And once again, comments. If your comment disappears without notice, realize that YouTube is cracking down on gun-related channels. So if your comment disappears, I'm not doing it. If I remove your comment, I will tell you I did so. Let's talk about this. And this is a story that I have to revisit. As you know, I've spoken about it in the past when it initially happened. It's the trial of Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny, and we should all know this because unless you've been under a rock for the last year or so, a man was acting erratic on the New York subway system. Daniel Penny put him in a hold to restrain him because he was menacing and taunting riders. The man died. Now, whether he died from the actions of Mr. Penny or some other issue, because he did have some medical issues and was in use of a narcotic, we don't know for sure. But Mr. Penny was arrested and is on trial, and some are calling this a travesty of justice. Some say this trial should never have happened, and others say he went too far. This is New York. New York is woke. Alvin Bragg is a Soros-funded DA. Letitia James, I need not go any further. They are woke. They are more pro-criminal than they are pro-citizen. That's just been a given. But this trial brings a testament to self-defense. You would hesitate. Check. Trials like this will make you hesitate to defend another person. Maybe you would defend yourself. You know, imminent danger to your body causes you to react. But when you see something that's involving other people, you may not want to get involved because you may end up in situations like this, depending on where you are. Now, as this trial I think has been going on for about a week, there have been testimony going back and forth. But every witness who was on the train all described the incident in favor of Mr. Penny and his actions.
Helping at 5, emotional testimony in the manslaughter trial of Marine veteran Daniel Penny.
Today, jurors heard from more people who were actually on that train, describing the moments when Penny allegedly placed Jordan Neely in a deadly chokehold.
Well, day 4, several witnesses testifying that they were terrified on that train that day of Jordan Neely. The mother of a 5-year-old testifying that she was relieved when Daniel Penny intervened. Now, a woman testified that Neely burst into the subway car that day, that he was loud, disturbing, and menacing. And then she used a curse word to describe exactly how scared she was. Then there was a mother of a 5-year-old son who demonstrated how Neely was lunging towards some of the passengers that day. She testified that she has been taking the subway for 30 years and she has seen disturbed people before, but she says Neely was a whole new level. He was erratic, unhinged, and screaming, and that she had to barricade her child behind their baby stroller to protect him. She said that she was relieved when Daniel Penny stepped in. Then there was a man from Brooklyn who testified that he was also terrified of Neely. Now, Daniel Penny's lawyers presented police body cam video, and you can see the witnesses telling police on that video just how scared they were, and that Neely acted like he was on drugs.
The whole train was freaked out. He was either going to pull a gun and knife.
And I think this guy is on drugs, because when he came in, he was unbelievably off the charts. He scared the living daylights out of everyone.
Now, Penny's lawyers spoke to reporters after court, so did Jordan Neely's uncle, and here's what they had to say.
It's hard to argue when you hear from this many individuals, right? Different walks of life, different areas of the city, different genders, different ethnicities, different races, all virtually uniform, saying that, not only was I scared, but I've never been this scared before. I've never seen anything like this. Nothing ever frightened me as much as Jordan Neely frightened me that day.
Now, here's the problem that I have. Every time something like this happens, and this is Neely, George Floyd, so forth and so on. These people are out running the streets doing all kinds of crazy nonsense. All of a sudden, something happens to them, and these concerned family members come out the woodwork. Where were you? You knew your family member had issues. Where were you before that? But it seems that when there's a paycheck involved, or potential paycheck, all of a sudden concern comes out in droves. And I really have a fucking problem with that. Excuse the French, but I'm so tired of seeing these family members telling you what a great person he was, and he was just hungry, and he was just minding his own business. And where were you if you knew this person had issues? Where were you before this? Stop. And I hate the fact that when they show you pictures of the so-called victim, it's always some high school photo, some photo in a suit, some photo in a tuxedo, some very favorable picture. And this goes all the way across the board. We can go back to the case of George Zimmerman down there in Florida. Every picture they showed of the victim was him when he was a teenager, 12 years old, 13, the little hoodie shot, the angel. It's like, wait a minute, that's not what he looked like that night. But that's what they're doing here. But let me not drift off too far, because I'm just a little irritated when I see this same pattern every time something like this happens. But people are comparing this, and I'm going to bring you into here. This is from the Federalist, and this article is written by Chuck DeVore. And he's talking about how the prosecution of Daniel Penny is a Soviet-style tactic. The prosecution of Daniel Penny is a Soviet-style attack on the right of self-defense. And this does apply to gun owners. So don't think it doesn't. You use your gun in defense of yourself or another person, you may find yourself in some serious hot water, as we have seen time and time again. And once again, it's dependent on where you live. Depending on where you live. But the prosecution of Daniel Penny fits a pattern that the Soviet-era Russian writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn would have recognized in detail. I'm not really going to read all this, but I want to get to the parts that really apply. But American justice has become politicized, a weapon against enemies with hall passes for favored groups. Attorney General Merrick Garland, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, and dozens of big city George Soros-funded leftist district attorneys routinely prosecute innocent citizens while letting criminals walk free. Because remember, every single one of these cases, these people had a criminal history before getting into a situation that ended their lives. The actions of these powerful officers of law fit a pattern that great Soviet Russian-era writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn not only would have recognized, but he also detailed. And he wrote 3 books. They're called Gulag Archipelago, and I have read them. I do have them in hardback, which is hard to find. I think they can be found online in PDFs. But this is a book that's been out of circulation, and actually they're pricey. But I did get all 3 books, where he talks about communism pre, during, and post-Stalin. So it's very good books. But Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's prosecutions of both Donald Trump and Daniel Penny, closing arguments for Penny's trial is scheduled for after Thanksgiving, combined with his leniency for deadly criminals, are a case in point. But in the Gulag Archipelago, Solzhenitsyn wrote of the Voroshilov amnesty granted 3 weeks after Stalin's death in 1953, which flooded the whole country with a wave of murderers, bandits, and thieves who had with great difficulty been rounded up after the war. Communist authorities thought a general amnesty would endear them to the people. Of course, many nonviolent political prisoners weren't eligible. This amnesty was compounded in Article 139 of the Criminal Code of 1926, which defined the limits of necessary self-defense. As Solzhenitsyn described the law, you had the right to unsheath your knife only after the criminal's knife was hovering over you, and you could stab him only after he had stabbed you, and otherwise you would be one put on trial. Solzhenitsyn then observed that this fear of exceeding the measure of necessary defense led to total spinelessness as a national characteristic. There it is. That's the bottom line. New York especially. You literally have to be stabbed in order to stab. You cannot initiate deadly force against a person, even if that person is bringing deadly force. That's the hesitation that will cause more crime. But returning to Bragg's prosecution of Penny, by now, much of the nation knows that Penny, a former Marine, intervened when Jordan Neely became aggressive and threatening on a subway train. Neely, who tragically died either during the confrontation or shortly thereafter, was not simply a man in need of help. He had a long history of violence and assault. By stepping in, Penny averted harm to fellow passengers. Yet instead of being held as a protector, Penny was prosecuted. It appears Bragg is a fan of the Soviet Union's Article 139. So, this is a really great article. I will leave it in the description box, but I don't need to read all into this. But this is how the comparison is being made. As it was in Soviet-era Russia, back in the 30s and 40s, they would hold the citizen accountable when they let the criminal walk. New York is embracing that ideal. Remember during COVID when they were just letting people out of prison, and these people literally go out and within days commit violent crime, murder against other citizens upon their release. Same thing is going on here. But I'll come back to the key of my argument here and my point. The prosecution of Daniel Penny is going to create, if he's found guilty, it is going to create a wave of panic among the citizenry. There's an action going on here. Should I get involved, knowing that I may end up here? It will cause a spineless hesitation. Why should I get involved to not only, one, potentially lose my life, but two, most importantly, to maybe being prosecuted, maybe going to prison for taking an action that on its surface is justified and righteous, because we have DAs who protect criminals more than they protect the citizenry. That question has to be asked and answered. And it does apply to us as gun owners. It does. For those of us who carry a gun or have the right to carry a gun, we would hesitate. There's something going on that does not personally involve us. Why should I get involved? That's a dangerous precedent to set because it does bring a detriment to society. There was another case in New York, and this is just a perfect example. And once again, I've talked about it in the subway. Once again, a person with a long criminal history was attacking a woman sexually. A man who was in the subway saw what was going on, discharged a firearm, scared off the perpetrator who took off. Don't get it twisted. I don't think you should just discharge a firearm randomly. That's dumb, obviously for obvious reasons. But he was trying to prevent something, a crime, an obvious crime against a woman who was defenseless. And he ends up getting arrested. Yet during that incident, once again, you have these idiots on the subway saying, oh, I don't think people should be carrying guns. It's like, okay, here's this woman being assaulted and not one of them is going to get involved. But we have to ask some serious questions about why this trial is even happening. And my prayer is that Mr. Penny is found not guilty. He needs to be found not guilty because if he's found guilty, it's going to paint a dangerous precedent going forward when it comes to self-defense. Not only of yourself, but others. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time a video goes live. I'm going to see you on the next one. Peace.